I do not own the rights to the characters mentioned in this story. Thank you to the Wizards of the Coast and my D&D group for creating them. Hearts, Daggers, and Dragons presents to you The Adventures of Vonric and the Bacon Brothers. Our story begins as many stories do, in a tavern. A tavern half a day's travel from a town called Greennest. It was built to take advantage of the caravans that occasionally passed by, heading to the Halfling city ahead. But despite its unassuming nature, this tavern was soon to be a very important place. This was where the Bacon Brothers, famed heroes of Faerun, first began their adventure. It was early morning, and the inn staff were already up and moving, preparing breakfast and setting tables for their guests. Business was booming today, 3 whole customers, and all of them rather interesting. First was a man clad in black robes, with only his eyes and a small pointed beard visible in the shadows of his cowl. Next, a dragonborn with scales of brass, openly displaying the symbol of Bahamut, a good-natured draconic deity. Finally, a quiet man, with blonde hair and clad in armor, a sword on one hip and a bow slung across his back. He sat in the corner of the room, away from the others, watching the dragonborn closely, a suspicious glare in his eye. This man had been with them for a few days, and he paid good silver for his room and meals, so the loquacious host didn't mind his secretive nature. As the waiters delivered their meal, another patron made his entrance. A beast of a man, wearing nothing more than a pair of bear-hide trousers and a deer pelt slung over his shoulders. He burst through the door, stared at the chairs and knocked them aside, pulling a storage barrel over to a table to sit. "Bacon!" the giant man demanded loudly. "Bring me bacon!" One of the waitstaff timidly approached, staring at the chiseled abs left unhidden by the pelt he wore. "How much bacon, sir?" The giant man glared down at the small waiter. "All of it," he said, flashing a broken smile. Not too long after, a massive bowl was brought out, carried by the 2 halfling waiters. This bowl was loaded to the brim, bacon spilling over the sides. No sooner had the bowl been placed down than the man had begun shoveling handfuls of the greasy strips of meat into his mouth, eating with the manners of a hog and the ferocity of a wolverine. The other patrons watched this enigma of a man, as he practically inhaled the food placed in front of him. When he was finished, with one grease-coated hand he tossed a pouch of silver at the waiter as payment, and with the other he stuffed the leftover bacon in the oily pouch hanging at his waist. The man looked around at the others, who were staring at him openly. "What you looking at?" he asked nobody in particular. Nobody answered, but they simply turned their attention back to their own breakfasts. On this fateful day came the event that would bring this strange group together, once and for all. A young man, his face streaked with ash and clothes torn, ran into the tavern, eyes wild and breath ragged. "Dragon!" he panted. "Dragon in Greennest! Invading people! Need help! Please, somebody help!" He glanced pleadingly at the men at the tavern. The quiet, blonde-haired warrior stood, placing one hand on the hilt of his sword. "I will go. I'll not leave suffering people to their doom." He walked up to the man. "You may call me Gallant." Seeing the other patron step up, the dragonborn decided to join in. Bahamut would never condone the attack of innocent people. This must be something foul at work. I shall partake in the fighting as well. He stood and brushed the crumbs off his war-piece robes. "Shamash Mayastan, cleric of Bahamut, at your service." The boy looked towards the robed man. "Sir, you look like the spellcaster type. Would you help us? Spells would probably be very useful." The man shrugged, sighed, and pulled out a notebook as if checking his schedule. "Consider me your mage," he said simply. and Fletcher Wolf. After them came the giant man, unbidden. If we're all gonna do this, then I'm in too. Time to Vonric smash some skulls. And thus these 4 men made their haste towards the town of Green Nest, ready for whatever enemies would present themselves. By the time they arrived at Green Nest, there was no sign of the dragon that had attacked, except the scorch marks on the ground, the burning houses, and the corpses of the villagers. The young citizen urged them on, telling them they had to make it to the keep, where they would meet the mayor and founder of Green Nest, Werner Nighthill. The team was led to the 2-floored stone keep, in through 2 sets of iron-banded doors, separated by a short hallway. Waiting in the center was a chubby halfling woman, twirling her hair as her gaze darted back and forth. Now, Vonric was a very intelligent man, able to count to 4 on all of his fingers, and he could tell from the look of this mayor that she was a complete idiot. Her assistant, an armor-clad dwarf, seemed to have a better grasp of the situation than Werner did. Why, hello there, visitors. Welcome to Green Nest. My assistant tells me we're under attack right now, so I can't really give you a tour, but you can look forward to one once this whole nonsense business is taken care of. The dwarf sighed. What Mayor Nighthill means to say is that we are grateful for your swift arrival. Green Nest is being beset by some terrifying foes. Strange men clad in purple robes and wearing masks like dragons. We're worried for our people's safety. Please, heroes, we beg your assistance. These foes have many of our people trapped in the cathedral. Werner gasped. What? You mean our people are in danger? Quickly, somebody do something. It's almost time for supper. We can't let them go without supper. Right, the dwarf said. There's also a barn, where we believe the commander has taken shelter. We need you to take care of that. And finally, our scouts report a ram outside, which will soon be crashing down our gates. If we don't take care of that soon, we could have a much larger problem on our hands. The team pledged their assistance, and prepared to leave. Before they could, however, Shamash tensed up. Sorry, guys, I really have to use the bathroom. I will catch up with you, though. Later. With that, he ran off, leaving the other 3 to begin the rescue of the civilians. They made their way to the cathedral. In the distance, they could hear the sound of approaching soldiers with the ram. Around them, however, the only sound was rats, scurrying away from the men who trod the dirt streets. When they arrived at their destination, Vonric wasted no time, kicking the door down with one muscular leg. He found himself confronted with the point of a spear, a man who quivered only slightly holding it. Vonric laughed. Smart, puny man thing to do. Hoping to take an enemy down with you when they charge in. I like brave man. What's brave man's name? Dale, the man replied hesitantly. Ale? Vonric inquired. Ale, good name. He grabbed the shaft of the spear and jerked it up, pulling his new friend Ale off the ground. What a good man, Ale! Gallant sighed. We're here to escort you back to the keep. Just tell your people to stay between Vonric and I, and you should be safe. We'll be heading to the barn to take out the commander first, but we will return you promptly to your destination. The return trip was quiet. Too quiet. Gallant was suspicious. He felt eyes upon him, and he scanned the rooftops. Just as he had suspected, something was watching them. Long, red-scaled creatures with a single horn on their snout, and deadly sharp fangs and claws that gleamed in the sunlight. These draconic creatures made an intimidating sight. As Gallant called the others into battle formation, they jumped down to attack. With Fletcher providing support from the rear, and Vonric distracting the first Drake with his wild swings, Gallant was easily able to mount the creature and cut its throat. Fletcher whistled at the speed and precision in which the warrior had acted, and switched his target to the other, when suddenly Vonric yelled at them to stop. Pointing at the drake, he said, This one has a thick white stripe down it. It looks like bacon. I want to keep it. Vonric, it is going to kill the civilians or us if we don't kill it right now, Gallant cautioned, moving in with his sword. Vonric come from mountain. Vonric good with animals. Watch. Reaching into his pouch, Vonric pulled out some of his leftover bacon, holding it out to the Drake. The Drake approached cautiously and snapped it up, allowing Vonnegut to stroke his scaly hide. Some surprisingly soft words and more offerings of bacon continued, and eventually the Drake was convinced that this big man would be a better master than its current owners. No more nightly vigils for it. It jumped up on Vonnegut's shoulder and lay down, falling asleep promptly. Vonnegut patted it on the snout. "I'm going to call you Bacon." He grinned at his allies. "See? Vonnegut best!" The others had to admit that the taming had been pulled off expertly. "I underestimated your skills, Vonnegut. I'll try not to do that again," Gallant said. With that, they headed off to the barn, where they were faced by multiple priests, dressed in robes dyed purple and wearing masks resembling the head of the dragon, just as they had been warned about. Vonnegut, in his usual direct fashion, rushed in, his axe swinging wildly, taking foes out with ease. Gallant pulled out his bow and took out priests who tried to escape, or take advantage of Vonnegut's exposed back. Before long, all the foes had been dispatched. From the barn strode a woman dressed in fancier purple robes that marked her as a leader. "I was not expecting to see such powerful resistance in this town. Unfortunately, your fight ends here, warriors. The wrath of Tiamat will bring you down. I, Frula Mondath, declare that." She planted the butt of her glaive in the ground and beckoned them forward, ready for anything. Or so she thought. When Vonnegut charged her with his arms wide, weapon sheathed, yelling loudly, she was too stunned to react. She dropped her glaive, and Vonnegut wrapped her up in a massive bear hug, disabling her movement. He turned and grinned. "We have our quarry. Back to the cape," he commanded, hoisting the woman up so her face was level with Bacon's snout. The Drake snorted in his old master's face, splattering her with greasy drool, as if to say, "Huh, shows you." With prisoner in hand, they prepared to return. Suddenly, from the barn, which was currently on fire, courtesy of a stray spell by one of the priests, something smashed a window and flipped to the ground sort of nimbly, stumbling only slightly. A very tipsy halfling, dressed in rags, cursed angrily towards the barn. "Well, there goes my sleeping space, I guess." He noticed the people in front of him. "Do you got any bows?" Vonnegut shook his head and pointed to the civilians. "We have ale, but you can't drink him." "Well, that's unfortunate. Maybe I'll find somewhere you're going. God, my head hurts." "Do you have a name?" Fletcher inquired. "Nope. Forgot that a long time ago. Maybe if I had some booze, I'd remember." "Drunk monk," Vonnegut interjected. "That's your name now. Follow us, drunk monk." With that, they returned to the keep, delivered Fulham to the dwarf assistant, and prepared to receive their next mission. Just then, there was a crashing sound from outside, followed by yet another, and the team realized what it meant. They had forgotten to take out the ram. See you all next time on the adventures of the Bacon Brother.